Mr. Speaker, today we face a fundamental choice: whether we are going to get to the truth about the violent January 6th attack, the worst assault on the Capitol since the War of 1812, and the worst domestic assault on American democracy since the Civil War, or whether we are going to allow lawful subpoenas to be ignored and the investigation being conducted by the Select Committee to be obstructed, to puff up the ego of the former president, who has launched another frivolous lawsuit, this time against the Select Committee. I have to tell you, Mr. Speaker, I still remember January 6th like it was yesterday. I was standing right where you are now, Mr. Speaker. Our democracy was in peril. The lives of members of Congress, our staffs, and all the workers here were endangered, and Capitol Police officers were beaten or worse. Getting to the truth of what happened or placating the ego of a former president, that shouldn't be a tough call. In any ordinary time, it wouldn't be. This measure would probably have passed on suspension. But because, as a member of Congress, we have fewer more important and solemn duties than what is at the heart of the measure before us today, and that is protecting our democracy and preventing future attempts to overturn the results of an election. This is about country, not about party. Now, many witnesses are already doing their patriotic duty and cooperating voluntarily with the Select Committee. In fact, 10 of the 11 witnesses required to produce records to the Select Committee by the required deadline are engaging with the committee. Only one person, Mr. Speaker, is refusing. One, Stephen K. Bannon. Instead of doing the right thing, the legal thing, the patriotic thing, Mr. Bannon is hiding behind the former president's false claims of executive privilege to try to run out the clock on this investigation. Now, maybe he has something to hide. I don't know. But the law isn't on his side. It's not on Donald Trump's side either. Executive privilege is not absolute, and President Biden has declined to invoke that privilege. There is a long history of the White House making accommodations to investigative requests from Congress. That's especially true when the public interest outweighs other interests, as it does here. But apparently, facts and the law don't matter to some. Apparently, Steve Bannon thinks he's above the law. Maybe it's because he was pardoned by the former occupant of the White House. But ultimately, in the United States of America, no one should be above the law. That shouldn't be a controversial idea. But we live in an age where apparently some put fidelity to Donald Trump over fidelity to the Constitution. And I find that disgusting. I get it. The former president is at Mar-a-Lago somewhere, seething about our efforts to get to the truth about January 6th. But he is so feared, Mr. Speaker, that my Republican colleagues are going to keep denying what happened that day. And they keep trying to sweep it under the rug as if it never happened or was no big deal. This is our democracy that we are talking about here. This is about the oath we took and the freedoms we cherish, freedoms that Americans have fought and died for, Mr. Speaker. And some, on the other side, are they really willing to throw away all of that to placate the whims of one man? Really? This has to stop. The legal scholar James Landis once said, and I quote, "To deny Congress power to acquaint itself with the facts is equivalent to requiring it to prescribe remedies in darkness," end quote. We need to see the facts in the cold light of day and follow them wherever they lead. That means not only holding those who attack this building itself accountable, as the legal system is currently doing, it also means holding people accountable when they attack what this building stands for: democracy and rule of law. We will not tolerate being left in the dark, and certainly not when something so fundamental is at stake. Now, this doesn't have to be a partisan fight. And just yesterday in the Rules Committee, we debated the underlying measure at length. And yes, we heard from the usual members who rushed to the former president's defense, who deflected and wanted to talk about anything other than the events of January 6th. But we also saw something more remarkable. Chairman Thompson, a Democrat, sat side by side with Vice Chair Cheney, a Republican. Two people who probably have never voted for the same presidential candidates in their lives. Two people who disagree on virtually every issue, but they agreed on this, on defending the Constitution and rule of law. Let's follow their example, Mr. Speaker. You know, I sat across the dais from Congresswoman Cheney for years when she was on the Rules Committee, when the Republicans were in charge. We were polar opposites. But yesterday, I couldn't have agreed with her more. Not as a Democrat, but as an American. Now, I don't give a damn if you're a Democrat or Republican, and I don't care if you like Donald Trump or not. Matters like this are about something more than petty partisanship. So I urge my colleagues, let's put our country before our party. Let's put defending our democracy before defending Donald Trump. Let's support this rule and the underlying measure, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as public servants, as members of Congress dedicated to preserving American democracy and the rule of law. That is what is at stake here, and nothing less. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves